Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
And welcome to you listening, watching, to our audience, and of course to tonight's panel, the Conservative Energy Secretary, Amber Rudd, Labour's Louise Haigh, one of this year's new intake of MPs, already a shadow minister, the leader of UKIP in the European Parliament, Roger Helmer, the columnist for The Sun, The Sunday Times and The Spectator, Rod Liddle, and the historian and broadcaster, Simon Schama. Thanks very much, and as ever, if you're into texting or tweeting, hashtag BBCQT, follow us at BBC Question Time, text comments to 83981, and the red button will tell you what others are saying. Our first question comes from Mel Luckhurst, please. Mel Luckhurst.
Europe, stay in or opt out?
That's about the simplest question we've ever had. Europe, stay in or opt out? Simon Schama.
Well, I'm for staying, but I think it's a very good idea to actually seek a reformed Europe. I never thought I'd actually sound like the echo of David Cameron. I don't know whether he or I are more upset about that, actually. But there are certain things, actually, about the proposal to seek a reformed Europe, which I think are worthwhile pursuing, particularly the issue of sovereignty. I don't think it's necessarily a matter of reprehensible shock and an entire violation of the European idea to think a little bit more clearly about the boundaries between sovereignty of the federated system and our own national representative, our own parliament. The thing about the EU is that it was founded, of course, after the war, out of the ashes of catastrophe. And the sense, actually, that tribal nationalism of a viciously modernized kind had caused untold slaughter and grief in the modern world was an absolutely noble basis for what began as the iron and steel community and then became the European Economic Community. So the emphasis ever since, when it was the common market and on, had been on the assumption of rising tide floating all boats. What was less thought about, except in this vague, slightly sentimental way, is what is Europe after all? And oddly enough, almost inadvertently, the great crisis of the refugees has actually forced Europe, in a way in which it may not have wanted, to think about whether it was going to be something other than simply a fine tuner of the international system of finance and economics. And the whole thing about the referendum is, if it's really just going to be decided on a cost accountancy basis, I don't know, that would be a lost opportunity.
But I don't want to interrupt you. Well, I do want to interrupt you. You said at the beginning you were sounding like David Cameron. Do you mean that there are circumstances in which you'd vote no, get out of Europe, if negotiations didn't go the way you thought they should go?
Yes, I might, actually.
Right.
I think fundamentally, I'm someone who believes that Britain historically is actually part of the larger community. I mean, I grew up as a European historian. My family history some of it comes out of Europe, so it would be a matter of pain. But I do think actually the negotiations should be taken seriously by both sides, and that's almost certainly what's going to be happening.
Okay.
There are other things. I promise to shut up in a minute. I know, promises. Certain other things about
believe you when I don't hear it.
Right, yeah. The 4-year wait for benefits, I think, is a hard ask, and I think that's actually too brutal a thing. But
I'll come back if I can. Louise Haigh.
Well, I'm sure Roger will inform you that the solution to all of our country's problems will be to come out of Europe. I'm confident that is where he's going to be on this. But let me tell you what coming out of Europe puts at risk for Britain. It puts at risk the billions of investment that we get as a country each year and the tens of thousands of jobs that depend on that investment. It puts at risk the protections that we all enjoy as working people and stop member states competing in a race to the bottom to drive down our terms and conditions. And it puts at risk the ability of us to tackle issues like climate change, working multilaterally across Europe.
But leaving aside what Roger may say, other circumstances...
I haven't said it yet.
I know, that's why I said putting it to one side. She may have a suspicion about what she'll say. Are there circumstances in which you would vote out?
No, I am a firm supporter of Europe, and I think the progress that has been made because of our membership of the European Union has been immense, and I think we get a net benefit out of Europe. I worry that David Cameron is there negotiating on behalf of his backbenchers rather than in Britain's interest, and rather than seeking to go out there and weaken those protections that we currently enjoy, I think he should be going out there and campaigning, for example, for changes to state aid, which would have enabled him to intervene in the decline of the steelworks in Redcar this week.
Well, I agree with the point about Redcar, which I hope we might talk about a bit more later on. I'm tending towards out, though I'm sort of the opposite to Simon in this respect, which is that it is possible, though I think highly unlikely, that David Cameron will get the sort of changes which he wants from our European partners. I think it's possible, but very unlikely. So my tendency is to go out for the two reasons. I mean, firstly, the question may be OTOs and redundant in that there may not be a European Union by the time the referendum comes around. It may have dissolved of its own volition, torn apart by two things, both of which worry me greatly and which outweigh, as Simon put it, the noble history of the European Union, which it was, without question. And that's the refugee or migrant crisis, as we should properly call it, and of course the disparity in culture and in economic power between the north, west of Europe and the south. Okay. And I think the thing which is tearing the European Union apart particularly is the migrant crisis. And it may well be, this is the one thing I hope, that actually this migrant crisis will eventually convince Angela Merkel and our European partners that there is a cause to change very drastically the way in which we handle our borders. But I still think at the moment it's unlikely, and probably more likely that the European Union will sort of dissolve in a puff of smoke, with the Greeks going one way and the Germans looking very unhappy in the middle.
OK, we'll come to the migrant crisis maybe later. You, sir, in the centre there.
I think in the talk of reform over the past weeks, there's been way too much emphasis on what can we get back as a country, and not enough conversation about the fact that there are too many people in senior positions in the European Union who are unelected, and the fact that with low turnout as well, we're left with quite a gaping democratic deficit.
Amber Rudd, do you agree with him?
Well, you will have that choice, if you feel so strongly about it, to vote against it.
Do you feel that strongly about it?
No, I don't feel strongly about that. What I do... I mean, I feel strongly that we don't want a Europe which is very expensive, and one of the key pillars of what David Cameron is trying to reform on is to make it more competitive for the UK, which means less costs in the bureaucracy, which I think is partly what you're highlighting there. But what I would say to Louise particularly is that it's not up to you, it's not up to me. The point is that David Cameron is going out to try to negotiate these reforms, and then it's going to be up to everybody else. He's the first Prime Minister, well, not first, the second, to give a proper referendum on the EU, and I think it'll be a great opportunity for people to actually have a look. We know there are pros and cons. If you talk to businesses, if you talk to people involved in anything in life, they feel that there are pros and cons, and now they're going to have a choice by the end of 2017 to vote whether to be in and out. But I certainly hope that it's in a reformed Europe.
We don't know the details of the demands yet, though, Amber, do we?
We don't.
I mean, so we're all
You never
arguing
will,
in...
mate.
No, you will.
I will guarantee that whatever demands David Cameron eventually tells us he's making, he will get. But they will not be the demands which we all wanted him to get from Europe in the first place.
But then you'll be able to vote against it. No, but, I mean, David Cameron will deliver us a package.
Is he going to make a list of demands that we can all have a look at and say, well, he got that one, didn't get that one, got that one?
There will be clarity when we get to the EU referendum of what is the proposal. He will be saying, this is the reform proposal, I have one for us. Now, shall we go in or shall we go out? And it's going to be up to the people to decide.
But not of the demands that have been refused.
But the demands that he's made, according to the...
Will he tell us? Will he tell us? Of course he won't, no.
Well, I mean, that's not really relevant. What is relevant...
It is extremely relevant.
No. What is relevant is what the offer is. You know, what is relevant is what the facts are for whether we want to stay in or out.
Indeed, I can tell you what the offer will be, and that is absolutely marginal and cosmetic. I haven't spent 16 years in Brussels and Strasbourg without hearing many, many European leaders repeating this sort of proposition. Juncker recently, Angela Merkel, they are all saying, yes, you might have some bits and pieces, but you cannot have the major issues. We will not get control of our borders. We will not reinstate the social chapter, which Major negotiated and Blair gave away. We will not get control, for example, of our own energy market. None of those things will be on offer. And it will be completely marginal. This is why I think that actually Cameron is negotiating himself into a corner, because he's promised a referendum, he's promised a renegotiation. I am telling you now, he will not get very much. But
why is he in a corner on that?
Well,
if he thinks it'll hold his party together, which may be...
No, he'll be in a corner because he will be forced to come back and try and sell to the British people and the British media and his own backbenchers a proposition which will be essentially trivial, very little change. Now, Simon started out talking about reform. We've been in the European Union for 43 years, and the European Union doesn't do reform. We've had politicians in meetings like this for 40-odd years saying, we're going to reform it, we're going to go out, we're going to get it sorted. We never do. You talk about sovereignty. I would rather talk about democracy. We have decisions made, laws passed in foreign institutions where we have no control and little influence, and we have to put up with them. We have, a couple more points, if I may say so. We have Louise talking about the loss of jobs if we leave. Well, recently we've had the chief executive of GE, the head person of Lloyd's in London, Lord Blakewell. We've had the owner of JCB, the tractor company, and a whole host of business people coming out and saying it doesn't make any difference. We should be just as happy outside.
There'll be a lot of tit for tat about that.
And Louise also says if only we could get state aid and Redcar sorted. The reason we have a problem with state aid and Redcar is because we're in the European Union.
Yes.
If we weren't in the European Union, we wouldn't have that problem.
It's not true.
We won't go into Redcar for them, but the woman there.
Thank you. I'm a committed card-carrying European. I'm a British citizen first, I'm a citizen of Europe second, a citizen of the world third. But turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Brussels is a bloated bureaucracy. It cannot reform itself. It's corrupt. It hasn't had its accounts audited for 20 years. It cannot reform itself. If we'd set it up the way we set up the American system, with checks and balances, perhaps it would be able to. It's undemocratic.
So you'll vote... How do you expect to vote when this referendum comes along?
I will vote for out because my parents voted to be in a European free trade area. That's what we should be in, a free trade area.
OK. You, sir, in the second row here.
Louise Haigh gave as one of her justifications for wanting to stay in the EU as the fact that we get a lot of rights in our workplace because of what's come from the EU, which is true. There is a certain amount of legislation that is there because it's come from Europe. But the coalition government have made it so expensive to be able to apply to an employment tribunal that actually none of those rights are really enforceable for most people.
Well, certainly there's a major issue with access to justice now in this country, isn't there? There's a fees for employment tribunals. I'm pleased to see the government are now looking at U-turns on fees for criminal courts as well. slashes the legal aid as well. They price people out of justice. You're absolutely right. If you've been discriminated against, it is very difficult to take your employer to tribunal. As a former trade union rep myself, I know how difficult it is to go through that process. But it's important those rights are properly protected across Europe, and the European Union, I think, is the best to enforce that, to ensure we're not competing with each other in a race to the bottom.
Man at the top left there, you.
Yeah, this is for Amber. The BBC today said that Angela Merkel is looking for Britain to clarify its intentions with regards to the EU referendum. Do you think David Cameron is being clear enough with the other EU leaders that this is what we want?
Listen, a year ago, or even 2 years ago, it was really not expected that the European Council, which is happening this week, that this would be on the agenda, despite the other troubles that's going on in Europe at the moment. This is on the agenda, the discussions are taking place, and that is already a breakthrough. And I don't share, obviously, Roger's cynicism that it's all a waste of time. He will be engaging with Angela Merkel and with the other leaders, and I'm confident he'll come back with a result.
Can I go to the questioner, Mel? What's your view? We've heard all this.
I do agree with Rod Liddle. I think that anything that's given to David Cameron will be cosmetic, but I will be very interested to see how the staying in lobby goes, because Mr Cameron will not want to leave Europe and leave that as his legacy when he leaves office.
You think he would resign if he didn't
No, I don't
win?
think he will resign, but I think when he comes to the end of his term, he will not want to be remembered for the Prime Minister in situ if we leave Europe.
It also seems to me, I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but it also seems to me just a little bit embarrassing that we are part of this organisation which we clearly don't like, and that we won't take part in all the stuff it does. So we don't want to have anything to do with the euro, rightly, as it's turned out. I mean, the public was right, the politicians were wrong about the euro.
No.
We don't... what?
Some of us were right about it, Rod. Some of us were right.
John Major was he not?
No, not for the euro.
Sorry, my memory must have slipped. I seem to remember a huge row in the Conservative Party in the mid-1990s between people referred to by Mr Major as bastards.
Oh, yes, that was the master.
I thought I not the euro.
But also... But we want so little, and we stand on the sidelines and carp and moan about Europe. They must be really sick of us. Never mind us.
OK, I'm going to take one point from you, and then I'll come back to Roger. Yes, you on the gangway. You're pointing at yourself. Right, go on.
I'm actually glad to commend the Labour peers and Lib Dem peers about votes at 16 now in the EU referendum, which is our future, not like the older generation, so to speak. But it is. But can I just make a second point? Can I just make a second point? That I went to Europe recently on a exchange trip called Erasmus Plus.
Or not?
To the continent, then, to Belgium actually. Brussels, and I went with Erasmus Plus, which was set up by the European Union. And when I was there, we went round the tour of the European Parliament, and the guy who said it was taking us around said, the Commission tell countries what to do. I was disgusted by that there is no democracy in that place. An unelected commission tells our politicians what to do. That is a disgrace. And David Cameron should be stepping up to the plate and saying, no, I was elected in May. You do not tell me what to do.
All right, thank you. I think we should go on. And this is a
very brief point. The lady over there said her parents voted to be in Europe because of trade. They wanted trade. So did I in 1975. What we want in our party is we want a relationship based purely on free trade and voluntary intergovernmental cooperation.
All right. We're going to go on to another question, which Rod Liddle just touched on at the beginning of his answer. But just before we do, Question Time's journey around the country is going to take us to Grimsby next week, and the week after that to Edinburgh. And the details of how to come, I'll give them again at the end, are on the screen there. Let's have this question then, please, from Ian Smiler, please. Ian Smiler.
How do we identify genuine refugees gathered at Calais and give them refuge whilst sending back economic migrants to home?
How do we identify genuine refugees from economic migrants? Who'd like to start on this? Roger, you start on it.
Yes, indeed. The answer is, and thank you for asking the question, it is almost impossible. We are dealing with people who may have thrown away their papers when they crossed the Mediterranean. We're dealing with people who may have been given passports in various other member states, and I won't name any names. If you look at the people who are coming in, it is extraordinary what a very large number of young men are included. Not all, there are some women, there are some children, there are some old men. At the beginning of this process, everybody said, of course they are refugees, of course they must be let in, including Angela Merkel, who made some very foolish statements. More recently, there have been proper studies done of people coming through, and it is clear that genuine refugees are a small proportion, and perhaps 70 or 75% are actually economic migrants.
But how at the border, here we are in Dover, how would you decide people coming in? Well, first of all, who should come in and who should be sent back?
What we should be doing is we should be giving people the opportunity to apply outside, in British embassies, abroad or whatever. Once you let these people in, they will always be here, whether they should have a right or not. And the idea that we might be deporting significant numbers of them, I think is very difficult. But we have stretched the definition of refugees wider and wider. And again, I say Angela Merkel said that anybody who's come from Syria. There are 20 million people out there, at least, probably more, who would like to come. We cannot take them all. If we start picking and choosing a few here and a few there, it is mere gesture
Sorry,
politics.
let me just get this right. People coming from Syria because of the war, in your opinion, may not be refugees.
We don't know where they've come from. How do you know they came from Syria?
I said people who came from Syria, come from Syria.
People who come from Syria may well be
refugees, or are they economic migrants?
How do we know where they came from? For a start, you say...
Well, they're speaking Arabic for a start.
Well,
so
that's good. No. Simon, let me answer.
Hang on, let Simon speak. Simon.
Well, you know, it's true, it's sometimes difficult, but this was exactly what was said, actually, about Jews in... not just in the 1930s, but I mean actually in the 1890s. What you've said would have actually prevented me from being here because my grandfather wouldn't have qualified. They were fleeing Russian pogroms in the 1880s and 1917.
Genuine refugees?
They were coming here not just... They were certainly to actually live rather than die, but living involved getting a job. What a surprise, actually. And there was an organisation...
Genuine fear of death? They're a refugee. Where's the problem?
Well, they were all... Yes, I know, but actually living involved actually wanting to find a place where you could make a living.
Of course.
Make a living. 1902, I'd like to remind everybody... Should we have a Socratic dialogue here, Roger? Something called the League of British Brothers was formed, which produced the first restriction ever on British immigration in the Aliens Act of 1905, where it was battalions of diseased, destitute and dangerous aliens, which was simply a synonym for Jews, it was decided they would be a threat to the country, they would never integrate, they had a different, barbaric, sinister religion, and that was going to be that. And it was on the basis of that that further restrictions on immigration took place.
And turn to Syria and today, and what would your view be about the question that was put? How do you identify who should come here and who should not?
Well, the United Nations has identified refugees as those fleeing from areas of war and persecution. The point I'm making is that flight from such areas like Somalia and Eritrea and Syria necessarily involves, in the first place, actually establishing your own safety. But logically, and what is wrong with that, is actually getting yourself and your family a job.
Right, no, hold on, Roger. Let's hear a forest of hands up. Let's just hear from some members of our audience. The woman there in the third row.
Nobody's coming from Egypt, Roger.
Yeah, you.
I believe that...
It's all right, Roger. I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
I believe that ultimately human beings are human beings, and whether they're refugees or even if they're economic migrants, if they're living in inhumane conditions, that we as a developed country have a moral obligation to help them out and have the right to life, and so that we should if we can in any way help. I really do believe that we should, because humans are human beings.
And the people 20 miles from here in Calais, what would your policy be towards them?
I think that to an extent we have an obligation as a country, seeing as they've got this far. It may not be ideal that they are here, but we can offer them help, maybe not let them in the country, but they are not living in conditions that any human would see fit.
Okay. And you, sir, over here. Yes.
So it's going back to the EU point. We have free trade and we have free borders throughout the EU if you gain nationality in one of the EU countries. So you said maybe about some form of application we can give them before they get to our borders. But if we reject them and another country within the EU accepts them, if they stay within that country for a certain amount of time, they can easily come into our country. So at the moment, it's just about communication, and at the moment, we don't have that.
Amber Rudd, what do you think the policy should be?
It's obviously incredibly difficult, the answer to the gentleman's question. I mean, in theory, you can ask a lot of questions and look at the paperwork, but there is a difference in status, and we must continue to respect the difference in status between a refugee and an economic migrant. But I think the best way we can help the bigger portion of these people who are turning up in Europe, which is from Syria, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, huge numbers are coming from Syria, is to help them in where they want to be, which was in the refugee camps. Actually, there are 11 million people being displaced out of Syria. They don't all want to come to Europe. The UK, we should be proud of our role here. The UK is the second largest bilateral donor. We've already spent £1.1 billion in trying to support the refugees in this camps. And let me tell you, when...
Sorry, can I just interrupt you a second? People want to be in refugee camps.
No, what they don't... No, OK, they don't want... I'm not saying...
That's what you said.
What they don't
we'll
want...
leave them where they want to be and we'll pay for them to be in refugee camps.
No, what they don't want to do is all move to Europe. What they want to do is be close to home.
Are you sure?
In order to stay there. Yes, I'm
so
sure.
What is
That's
the
what
perception?
Amber, there are no schools for the children. There are no drugs for the sick. The Lebanese hate the Syrian refugees among them.
Then we need to do better with the camps. And you know what? We also need to get our European partners to step up and contribute more to these camps as well.
It's fine to talk about that, but the actual assistance we've given them in situ is pitiful and hypocritically enough.
It's £1.1 billion.
Not in terms of, well, it's not enough.
But that is the way, and that is something, as I say, the UK can be proud of in terms of its overseas development aid. And it's not just Syria, it's also Eritrea, the biggest place from Africa where people are coming from. We can be proud of the fact that we help people stay in their country and stay in their area. We can't have a situation where you have 11 million
Britain
people
has
coming to
200
Europe.
Syrian refugees in the country at the moment. 3,000 are arriving every day in Greece. David Cameron is the only European leader that has refused to cooperate in the European relocation scheme. How can you ask our European partners to do any more than they're already doing?
It is right to help them where they are. It won't help. If you start telling people that we can have tens of thousands coming here, they will start making that journey. Then they'll come across the Mediterranean. You will have the pull.
Can we just stand back a minute, just for a second?
You'll encourage the people traffickers.
It's absolutely astonishing, isn't it, that this young lady here had to point out that these are human beings as well. But how would you reflect on where this immigration debate has got us to? At the beginning of the summer, David Cameron described these people desperately fleeing for their lives as a swarm. It's exactly as Simon says. 2 weeks before Aylan Kurdi was seen washed up dead on the beach, government minister said that their boat should be turned back and sent to where they came from.
I think we need to very seriously
reflect on the kind of society we want to project to the rest of the world and how we treat the very vulnerable.
I'll come to you, Rob. The man up there, you sir, on the right there. Yes.
This government must have an open-door policy on immigration now, because in the last year they've closed 2 immigration removal centres.
Wait, no. We don't have an open-door policy.
Well, you must
we're pleased not to be part of the Schengen Agreement. We have tough borders and we're going to continue to enforce them.
Well, what do you expect these people to do when they arrive in this country? It's cheaper to leave them in the community than it is to keep them in...
No, we have immigration detention centres.
You've just closed 2 in the last 12 months.
And we have new ones as well. We have modern ones that are going to be receiving
private sector
them.
ones, is that?
All right.
It's a different issue, if I may say.
Oh, no, it's the same issue, isn't it? It's people's jobs we're talking about.
We have a place for immigration detention centres.
All right, let's go on. Rod Liddle.
Yeah, it's actually not as difficult if we're talking about Calais as my fellow panellists have made out. It's not difficult at all, because 97.5% of the people in that refugee camp in Calais, in Sangatte, are not refugees. They are migrants. Now, it's not me saying that. It's not me saying that. You can listen to the non sequitur emotional incontinence of Simon, if you like, and go along with this sort of bizarre view of the world, but it is not the truth. Let's listen to what the main Muslim charity, which was raising money for those people in Calais, said. The guy who ran it went to Calais and said, we are withdrawing our aid from Calais. They are almost exclusively, quotes, fit young men who are happy and are not fleeing danger. I thought they had a valid reason to be there. They do not have a valid reason to be there. That's not me speaking, that's the charity that was raising money for them. But because of the Dianification of this crisis, as we've heard, the sort of stuff, the emotional stuff from Simon, and to a degree from Louise, this whipping up, they are human beings. Of course they're human beings. But what we must not do is do the wrong thing for the right reasons. And that would mean opening our doors and saying more should come, because more and more and more will die, will lose their lives.
Thank you. I'll come to Simon a bit ahead to answer that.
You know what's really contemptible, Rod, actually, is saying emotion should have no part in how we actually respond to
I'm interested in outcomes, not in your emotion. I'm interested in what is good for those people and what is good for this country, not in how you feel about yourself.
I'm not talking about myself, actually. You know, ask not for whom the bell tolls, actually. You can have a view, there's nothing to be ashamed of about having an emotional response to the suffering of 4 million Syrian refugees.
Then you decide what to do about it.
We can disagree, but
then you decide what to do about it.
But do not presume to lecture me about the inadequacy of an emotional response to mass human suffering.
It made no sense.
That's your.
It made no sense. It made no sense. It was a non sequitur.
Go back to your journalistic hackery and talk about outcomes and turn your suburban face away from the plight of the miserable.
I'm not suburban. I just come from a different class to you. That's what it is. It's a guess.
Can I come back? If I can cut into this argument, can I come back on the point that Simon made earlier? I said, how do you know they're Syrian? He said, because they speak Arabic. Well, I've got to tell you, Simon, people right across the Middle East speak Arabic.
I know that, but people are not.
They speak Arabic.
And across Northern Africa.
They speak Arabic in different dialects, and a friend of mine who speaks excellent Arabic was involved in interviewing one of these people, and they said, where are you from? And he said, Syria. And my friend said, he's not from Syria, he's from North Africa. I know the accent. So don't believe because they speak Arabic, they all come from Syria. The point is that...
The emotional response will not help the people.
Rod is absolutely right in the sense that we in this country have to cope. Now, you saw the news today. We have hospitals that can't cope. We have schools that are packed. We have social infrastructure under enormous pressure. Housing. Now, and if you read the opinion polls, you will find that immigration is the biggest single concern of British voters. So,
all right. All right.
About immigration instead of services, and your party are part of the people to blame on that.
No, the voters are smarter than that.
Can I just
finish your point?
Please, can I come back? I just want to say one more thing, because I've been keeping a good eye on Thanet UKIP sites, and this old story about why is it just young men? If I was a mother in Syria and I had a family, I wouldn't want my young girls trekking across continents. I would send my young sons out first so that they would make their way and make their way safe for my daughters. How dare you even imply
I want to hear from more members of the audience. You, sir.
Why is the Arab League not helping these people?
Say again, sorry?
Why is the Arab League not helping these people?
Why the Arab League not helping?
Yeah, there's 22 countries. Six of the richest.
So, what do you think the responsibility of Europe and of Britain in particular should be, in your view?
The Arab League should be helping all the Syrians and all the people come from that area. There's 22 Arab countries. 6 of them are some of the richest countries in the world, and there isn't one immigrant or refugee in that country.
Okay. The woman up there at the back. The woman up there at the back. Yes, you.
Country in Lebanon and Jordan.
And Jordan. And Jordan.
Yes.
I would ask those who are resolutely anti-immigration, whether that be economic migrants, refugees, asylum seekers, to consider this. If Homo sapiens had not migrated out of Africa, you wouldn't be sitting here tonight.
Okay. And the man in the blue shirt there, or the grey shirt, yes, you.
I'm curious about this distinction between young, old, working, fit, abled men being desperate to leave their homes or not. You know, if they're clinging to the bottom of a lorry, if they're holding onto a train, they are desperate to get across that water to run away from danger. They're not looking to run away and just get benefits or get a house. And the reason why we are so short on doctors and school places and houses is successive failures of government to address the issue in the first place.
All right, Amber Rudd.
I don't think our immigration policy should be based on the survival of the fittest. I think it is much better to do what David Cameron has said we're doing, which is to take up to 20,000 people who are probably the most vulnerable, who might be the young girls who are left behind, who might be vulnerable in those camps, and try and help them to come over here.
Yes.
All right, and you with the spectacles on in the 1, 2, 3, 4th row. Yes, the man there.
Yeah, can I say, I think it's actually, frankly, quite embarrassing and actually quite infuriating that the government is only willing to take 20,000 refugees over a period of 5 years. If we actually consider ourselves to be a compassionate nation, surely we'd be taking a lot more.
But what about the fact that we are working to support these camps? The fact is that we are...
Simply not. I just simply think it's not good enough.
Wait, I mean, what about those millions of people in the camps? I mean, I don't think you should underestimate the commitment that we've made there and the money that we're spending.
All right, let me just... Let me try and get a bit of balance into this, because we're here in Dover. You have the problem, you've had it consistently for quite a long time, of trying to decide what should happen from Calais through here. Dover. I want to hear from people who think that the government's policy broadly is right, not that you do. All right.
I commend Amber and the government for being the second largest donor of aid to these camps of people who aren't fit enough to come all the way over there. And it's an absolute tragedy that these people are coming from Syria, there's no doubt about it. But obviously we cannot physically open our doors and let everyone here, but I think we should be proud that we're the second largest donor to these camps. I think people just brush that off, and we are, although we would love to take more, we are doing something about it.
And you, man here, if you can get the microphone over there. And yes, go on then, far away. Man in the second row.
I think it's quite easy for Roger and Rod to claim or to say that we shouldn't take in more people whilst you're sat in this room in your nice suits, but for those people who are there suffering, it's a lot harder. And to go on your point, I think that Britain should be taking more people. Germany took 18,000 people over a weekend, yet we're only taking 20,000 over a whole 5-year period.
Okay.
It's not acceptable.
The man in the green, yes, with the spectacles on there, yes, on the corner. You, sir, in the second row. No, the person in front of you. A lady, is it, with white hair? Yes, grey hair, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No,
sorry.
go on.
I'm seeing it in a bit of a practical way, really.
Yes.
A lot of the Syrian refugees that will make their way to this country are quite often, they've had to finance their journey, so they're more likely to be, they often speak English. I see that they can actually bring a lot to this country. But we're in a failing health service. We haven't got enough nurses and doctors. We've got a crisis in the health service and in a lot of other professions. And
Would you have unlimited immigration until...
Well, I think
how would you do it?
You know, we shouldn't be so negative towards this immigration. I do think they've
Yes,
put a
but
lot
that's
to
the
offer.
question. What is the answer then? Is it unlimited immigration?
No one is suggesting unlimited immigration.
Well, I know you're not.
A refugee is a refugee, no matter how old they are, no matter their gender. Under international humanitarian law, we have an obligation to take asylum seekers that arrive on our border when they are genuinely asylum seekers.
How many
and can
millions?
I just go back to something that Roger said there? Because there is a constant scapegoating from UKIP and from the Tories that immigration is the sole pressure and the sole cause for concern on our public services.
Nobody said it was the sole cause for concern.
To our
It's
public
ridiculous.
services is not asylum seekers coming from Syria or plumbers coming from Poland. It's decisions made by this Tory government.
It's 600,000 immigrants a year, that's what it is. If Cameron had got immigration down where he said he was going to get it, then we might have more elbow room for a compassionate treatment of those who wish to come.
You're much more likely to be treated by migrant workers than you are to see migrant workers queuing out the door.
Ian Smiler. Ian Smiler, who asked the question, what's your view?
I think it's terrible that you're seeing these people dying in France and trying to get into the UK, but I don't think they should be trying to get into the UK in that way. There are proper channels, and the proper channels have got to be used. Yeah. These people have been brought over to the French through Europe. Schengen's now not in operation because the borders are closed in Europe. I experienced that myself earlier this summer. These people need to be coming through the proper channels. So I'm very pleased to see the UK government bringing in from the camps in Lebanon and in Jordan, which is where these camps are. These camps can't be fun places to be. It's going to be winter soon. Last year it snowed there and it was pretty cold for them there in these camps. So we need to do something. I don't think 20,000 is probably enough over 5 years.
Okay.
But certainly a step in the right direction. And as for Sangatte, well, we need to be looking at how we can get that closed and stopping people coming there in the first place.
All right, we've got a lot of people with their hands up, but I've got more questions. I want to try and get 2 more questions in before the end of the programme, if I can. So let me just go on to one more from Carol Broad. These will have to be fairly quick compared with that, which was very interesting. Carol Broad, your question.
Should we have more grammar schools?
Should we have more grammar schools? This on the day that the government has announced that they're going to open, well, they say it's not a grammar school, but an extension or a satellite. Near here at Sevenoaks, a satellite of one at Tunbridge in Kent. Roger Helmer, are you in favour of more grammar schools?
We absolutely are, and here I can tell you exactly what UKIP policy is. UKIP says that every town in Britain should have a grammar school, obviously if parents and voters in that town want it. And let's not run away with the idea that, I'd love to say that the Conservatives have had a change of heart and picked up a UKIP policy, but it's quite clear that Nicky Morgan today was almost apologising for having allowed a sort of new grammar school to be opened and insisting the law wouldn't be changed. We have a government here which wants choice in education. You can start any kind of school you want so long as it's not a grammar school. And grammar schools are the one kind of school that a majority of parents, from today's polling, a majority of parents actually want. And if parents and voters want grammar schools, for heaven's sake, why shouldn't they have grammar schools?
Carol, are you in agreement with Mr Helmer on this?
Yes, I am. There's nothing wrong with aspiration. If those children work hard and pass an exam and go to a better school that they're best qualified to be taught in, then there should be a grammar school in every county.
Okay. Rod Liddle, are you for more grammar schools?
Who, me?
Yes,
I'm conflicted, I'm afraid. I don't know. I've always been of the opinion that the best way for the country is to have rigorously streamed comprehensive schools, and I've always been behind that idea. However, don't clap too soon, because I am beginning to tend the other way. I mean, looking at the way, I think the ideology within our comprehensive schools has gone too far in the other direction, and that whilst the schools do... I think what the schools are doing, what the comprehensives do, is perhaps now spend too much time on the less able, and the brightest kids fall by the wayside. Now, there's one more thing.
No evidence left whatsoever.
The other point about that, which sort of supports that, is that back in the 1960s, late 50s, 1960s, we had the highest rate of social mobility that this country's seen. And I suppose it's a time I look back on with some fondness. I don't think that all of that was down to grammar schools. But there is no doubt that, particularly for working-class kids, the brightest working-class kids, grammar schools were hugely, hugely useful. I don't think it completely answers the question, if I'm honest, and I'm not convinced either way. I think there are knock-on effects with grammar schools. It tends to mean that the primary and junior schools in the county, which is full of grammar schools, tend to be not used so much by the middle class, tend to be used by who send their kids to private school. So I think it's a very complex issue. I think I'm still basically for comprehensives. I just wish they were better.
Are you decided? Yes?
I'm a Conservative voter, and you know, I'm actually a big fan of Michael Gove and the reforms he's tried to do, but I do think this is something the Conservatives haven't done as well as they should do, because it's, as has been said already, it's about aspiration, and surely we should be encouraging working class kids to achieve the best they can, rather than just pushing them into a one-size-fits-all system, which we have currently, which isn't working at all.
Well, Michael Gove wasn't in favour of grammar schools.
That's what I'm saying. I think we should have done more. I'm saying
Yes.
I'm a fan of him, but I don't think he was very
No,
good
well,
there.
Michael Gove wasn't in favour for a very good reason, and that's because actually he thought 11 years old was much too early to segregate abilities. Isn't that ludicrous? So, the academies and the free schools, what they do is make a possibility, as I'm sure you know, of a grammar stream at any stage.
But even then, people, even at 11 years old, I'm only 22, so it wasn't that long ago I was doing this. Even at that age, you know whether you're academic or not, and you can express your talents.
No, you don't.
You
my
do.
friend.
You can express your talents then. It's
And
not.
I was a terrible dope at 11. No change there.
Oh, come on, I was 11 more recently than you were.
Yeah, no, you really don't. And I mean, there should at least. I actually happen to think that schools of a large variety of abilities, within which there is a grammar stream, and within which actually results are published, as they are in an academy quite near where I live in London, actually fully meets aspirational possibilities without actually separating kids humiliatingly into the rest, while grammar schools cream off the brightest and the
voters disagree.
All right, the man with the spectacles on there has been signalling to me. Yes, you, sir.
I own a business in Dover, and we find it
You
hard
can put your
to
hand
find...
down while you speak, if you like, yes.
We find it hard to find the right people, and we have 80% of the people in our business, and it's come from grammar schools here. And I commend Dover for the girls' grammar school. We have one of the best grammar schools in the county here, and we have a good boys' grammar school as well.
And you want more?
We want more, yes.
But, Amber Rudd, it's a puzzling policy, this, because it's not more grammar schools, but satellite schools with 10 miles between them. I don't quite understand what that means. Will they have their head teacher in each place? Or is it one,
It's one school with shared services, shared oversight. They're going to meet
What's the
once
difference
a week.
between that and saying, let's have grammar schools, like he says?
Well, because this is about sticking to the policy, which is about good and outstanding schools. Good and outstanding schools can expand. And this is a good and outstanding school. And I think it was a great day. And I don't share Roger's view about Nicky Morgan's announcement today. I thought she was incredibly positive about it. She rejected it the first time. She's accepted it this time because it is an expansion of an existing good or outstanding school. And the point is, it is neither, is it what this gentleman says, which is one size fits all. The schools policy is about allowing variety of schools.
So why
won't
you have more grammar
variety of children?
Why won't you do what she wants, the questioner, and have more grammar schools if you're in favour of variety?
Because we are trying to get the balance. We're trying to get the balance.
Why do you want to get a balance?
Because
why not just let them have it if they want it?
Because comprehensive state schools can now have much more independence through academies. A lot of them are free schools and studio schools.
Yeah.
It's right to have a variety of schools on offer. So it's the emphasis is on good and outstanding.
But you've got not what people want. The country want grammar schools. Would
the policy is only to have existing grammar schools expand.
Can you explain
within
why
the state.
that is? Because you can have academies, you can have free schools.
No, because we want a balance.
Parents?
And because we now have many academies who have effectively, in fact, I know one academy that has something they call a grammar school stream. They have aggressive streaming to try and make sure...
But sorry, but why do you want a balance? If one area wants a grammar school, you don't say to them, oh, well, you've got to have an academy or free school because we want to get a balance. Why do you want a balance? Why not let people... If your policy is to let people have what they want, I mean, I have no view about this, but if your policy is to have people what they want, why don't you let them have what they want?
Because the policy is to allow grammar schools only to expand.
I know
it's a bad policy.
No, I don't think it's a bad policy because you don't know the consequences if you allowed new grammar schools to set up. We now have a system where existing schools are improving. Since 2010, there are now 1 million more children at good or outstanding schools. Let's not change the system.
You can have any kind of school as long as it's not a grammar.
There are many negative reasons against grammar schools. I mean, let's
I'd rather trust the parents and the voters.
Louise Haigh.
Well, no, I mean, there are reams of objective evidence to show that disadvantaged students do worse in selective areas, isn't there? And that's my problem with grammar schools. Obviously, there are excellent grammar schools. There are 2 right here in Dover. But is it any wonder that the schools are doing better when they can cherry-pick students at age 11, just as some of the best-performing academies in this country are doing now, because they're expelling more difficult students after entry. It's just a different type of a selection post-entry. We proved in government that collaborative, cooperative systems of education could raise standards for all children. And what actually
Would you
this
abolish
government...
grammar schools in that case?
We won't close down. Of course, we won't close down
Why not? Why do you say
well-performing
of
schools
course?
because they're you know they're serving businesses locally. They're delivering a good education.
But if
what
in
I want to
principle
see,
it's wrong and the system's wrong
well,
for
what I want to
people,
see is to move
and
towards
disadvantaged children don't do well, why allow them to continue?
Because when we have a more cooperative system embedded with local oversight, then I would hope that grammar schools like this would move away from selection. But actually, what this government is presiding over is a serious crisis in recruitment and retention of teachers.
Not true.
56% of places have been filled
Okay,
in
but
September.
we're talking about grammar schools, not about teaching. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think grammar schools are becoming more about sort of less able middle-class children than high-ability working-class people, and I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay. I'm going to go on now because we've only got 4 or 5 minutes left, and I want to take this last question from Sharon Davis McLaren, please.
Is the much-reported chaos in the Labour Party's policy-making simply a sign of a healthy democracy and to be celebrated?
Okay.
What a nice try. Nice try.
A friend of yours.
I think there's one for you, Louise.
Back to Westminster politics. Amber Rudd.
Well, I mean, it does feel chaotic. I mean, we had a debate yesterday. The leader of the Labour Party was for it a few days ago with his Shadow Chancellor and then against it yesterday. But, I mean, on a serious note, you know, Louise commented earlier about Conservative policies towards the health service. The fact is that the only threat really to the health service, or indeed to our schools, would be a badly managed economy. What we need is a well-managed economy. That is why we were re-elected 6 months ago. And I think that you can talk about the sort of the chaos of the Labour Party, but the real threat is to our economic security.
Okay. Hold on. Wait till you get the microphone.
And now you're about to do it, and I voted
Sorry,
Conservative
just start again because you didn't have the microphone at the beginning. Just start again. It's all right. Go on.
I do apologise.
Go on, Nasby.
Okay. I voted Conservatives originally because I thought you were going to be the better chance for me and my children. You're about to cut tax credits after promising you wouldn't. I work bloody hard for my money to provide for my children, to give them everything they've got, and you're going to take it away from me and them. I can hardly afford the rent I have to pay. I can hardly afford the bills I've got to do, and you're going to take more from me.
All right.
Shame on you!
Louise Haigh. Louise Haigh. Let me just after that remind you of the question. Is the much reported chaos in Labour Party's policy making, and you supported Jeremy Corbyn, and indeed you're a junior shadow minister, is it simply a sign of healthy democracy?
Well, I can report there's absolutely no chaos going on
at
the moment. There has been a debate about what our response should be to a political stunt. Let's be clear, there's been no change in our economic policy since Jeremy was elected. This was a change in a parliamentary tactic to a political stunt by a Chancellor that is more interested in political posturing than he is in tackling the fundamental issues in our economy.
Why did Ben Bradshaw, who's a former cabinet minister, say, I can't repeat it on television live, it's a total shambles, the Parliamentary Labour Party?
We had quite a feisty meeting on Monday. There are people that have very deeply held views about the way the Labour Party should go and how we should oppose this horrendous government. And when people feel strongly about that, yeah, it's going to get heated.
Okay.
I'm not embarrassed about that. This is a new way of doing politics. I'm proud that we're a new democratic Labour Party and that people can air their views. But let me just go back to the point.
We haven't got all night. Let's just hang on there and let Rod Liddle comment on that. Proud of the way that it's doing its politics.
I think Louise put a very, very good face on it, and congratulations to you. I mean, I find it just desperately depressing that the party which I've been a member of for 40 years now looks less likely to win an election than under Michael Foot. The thing which annoyed me about the John McDonnell business... The John McDonnell business is very important. John McDonnell, the hypocrisy and cant of the man. He had the gall to say that he changed his policy because he'd been up to Redcar and met the steel workers' wives and saw their tears. He made his statement supporting the austerity, the budget surplus, 12 days after the steelworks was closed in the first place. So that is a downright fib, and it's just disgraceful. What's happened to the people in Redcar, losing their community losing their jobs. It'll be tens of thousands of jobs. It'll be a depressed area. They want a strong Labour Party to fight for them. And the local MPs have been brilliant, the local Labour MPs, but they haven't got a strong party in London to fight for them. And there is no support for them there.
All right, yes, the woman there on the side. And then I'll come to you, Simon. Yes.
Louise made the point that what Corbyn is doing with his party is at least is moving above political posturing, and I think it's a perfect example of what Amber did earlier, where we were talking about the main benefits of Cameron's approach to the Syria crisis and how we should be proud of the donations that we're making. But that's really just political point scoring. No. It's actually just something to satisfy the disagreeing backbenchers. At least Corbyn is accepting there are always going to be disagreements and shades of grey, and politics does need to change.
Well, very briefly, it's actually not knowing what the Labour Party's position is going to be from week to week is incredibly entertaining, really. Actually, I speak as, someone who supported the Labour Party for a long time, but more seriously, I think Jeremy Corbyn is a leader who has not yet figured out what being a leader means. And the kind of Tony Blair aversion problem, the sense in which New Labour was a kind of contaminating heresy, has gone so deep as to turn the Labour Party into a kind of a church of multiple voices, really, a congregation rather than a government in waiting. I'm not saying that's how it
still
appears.
worship God?
Pardon?
Does it still worship God? I mean, is there a unifying factor?
If Jeremy Corbyn's ever going to kneel, it's more likely to be before God than the Queen, it seems.
Roger Helmer.
Yeah, I like the way that Louise talked about a political stunt, but of course the political stunt was Ed Miliband's plan to have £3 associate members. So you ended up with an electorate selecting the leader of the Labour Party who were profoundly out of sympathy with the parliamentary party. So you've now got the parliamentary party led by somebody who is out of sympathy with his MPs, and the result is you don't have an effective opposition. Now, you may like this Conservative government or not like this Conservative government, but the fact is it would operate better with a genuine, effective, professional opposition to challenge and scrutinise what it would do, and Labour is not delivering that.
OK, you, sir. You third row.
I'm absolutely staggered at the attack on Jeremy Corbyn all the way through. The gentleman says about the definition of a leader. It's how you define a leader. A leader to me and a leader to all these people who pay politicians' wages, somebody who listens to the public, listens to we pay their wages. Now, on the Prime Minister's questions, when he addressed the public questions to the Conservative Party, it was met with laughter and is an absolutely disgusting way to do politics. So a leader to me is someone who leads from the people.
And whose principles stands up for what they believe.
All right, you in purple, the man in purple there. Briefly, if you would.
Yes.
No, you're not in purple, sadly. If you had been, I would have gone to you.
Going back onto Amber's point about the economy, are you not aware that you've got lower growth than the Zimbabwean economy and you talk about good economy? It's a joke.
OK.
Maybe you're afraid of the establishment threat by Corbyn towards your mates and Murdoch's mates. Maybe that's why you're attacking Corbyn.
All right.
We're not frightened.
And I'll take a brief point from the man in front of you.
With Corbyn, not frightened.
I would just like to say I think it's a really exciting time in politics. I think we've had such a grey era of politics for so many years in this country. He's a really interesting leader, and I think it's nice to see a real honest man saying what he thinks.
All right, thank you very much. And I'm sorry, that ends this hour of Question Time.